Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a quiet force within our minds. It makes us seek out information that confirms what we already believe, while effortlessly discarding anything that contradicts it. It shapes our reality, making two people see the same event in entirely different ways. It keeps superstitions alive and conspiracy theories thriving. Our minds crave certainty, even when the facts whisper otherwise. But breaking free requires curiosity, a willingness to step outside our beliefs, to challenge, to question, to explore the possibility that we might be wrong. And in that space of openness, real understanding begins. Pause. Deep breath. Let that sink in. And now, let's drift further into another thought. Availability. Heuristic. Picture this. You're about to board a plane. You grip your ticket, step onto the jet bridge, and suddenly, a memory flashes. You heard about a recent plane crash. The image is vivid. Your heart races. Flying suddenly feels dangerous. But is it? Statistically, flying is far safer than driving. Yet, at this moment, it doesn't feel that way. This is the availability heuristic at work. Our minds rely on the most available memories to judge risk, not the actual facts. The more dramatic or recent an event, the stronger it weighs on us. The media thrives on this. Rare, tragic events are highlighted, repeated, emphasized, and without realizing it, our perception bends. But awareness brings clarity. When we understand how our minds work, we can pause, take a breath, and remind ourselves, not everything that feels true is. And with that thought, let your mind ease as you drift deeper into the quiet space of understanding and rest. Anchoring. Bias. Picture this. You're shopping. You spot an item marked down from $100 to $50. Instantly, it feels like a steal, a great deal. But what if that item was originally priced at just $45? Would it still feel the same? This is the anchoring bias at work. Our minds latch onto the first piece of information we see, the anchor, and use it as a reference for everything that follows. Prices, numbers, even opinions, they all bend around that initial impression. We trust it, even when it leads us astray. Pause. Let that thought settle. And now, let's shift to another way our minds shape our choices. Framing effect. Imagine this. A doctor explains a surgery to you. One way, they say, there's a 90% survival rate. You nod. That sounds reassuring. But then, they rephrase it. There's a 10% chance of death. Suddenly, it feels different, riskier, more uncertain. But the truth hasn't changed. This is the framing effect. The way information is presented, framed, shapes how we perceive it. The same facts, seen through a different lens, can lead to entirely different decisions, and we rarely notice it happening. Breathe in, breathe out, and now let's explore another way our minds trick us. Overconfidence effect. Think back to a time when you were absolutely certain about something. Maybe it was a test you thought you'd ace, a challenge you were sure you'd overcome, and yet the outcome surprised you. This is the overconfidence effect. We overestimate our knowledge, our skills, our certainty. It happens in classrooms, in businesses, in everyday life. And the more convinced we are, the less likely we are to prepare, to question, to grow. But awareness changes everything. When we recognize our own blind spots, we open the door to learning, to adapting, to seeing things just as they are. And with that thought, let your mind settle. As you drift deeper into rest, into quiet, into peace. Fundamental attribution error. Picture this. You're walking down the street, and ahead of you, someone stumbles, almost falling. What's your first thought? They must be clumsy, right? But what if the sidewalk was uneven? What if they were lost in thought, distracted by something important? This is the fundamental attribution error. We instinctively blame personality rather than circumstance. We do it with strangers, with friends, even with ourselves. But the world is rarely that simple. Pause, let the thoughts settle as we move deeper into understanding our mind. Hindsight, bias. Think back to a moment in your life when something unexpected happened. Yet, after it was over, you thought, I knew this was going to happen. That's hindsight bias. The illusion that we knew it all along. But in reality, our minds reshape memories to make sense of the past. We rewrite our own history, convincing ourselves that the outcome was always clear. And because of this, we sometimes stop questioning, stop learning, believing we were always right. Breathe in and out, and let's shift into another hidden bias, one that shapes how we see ourselves. Self-serving bias. Imagine you succeed at something big, a test, a project, a challenge. You feel proud because you worked for it, earned it, deserved it. But what happens when things don't go your way? Do you blame bad luck, circumstances, other people? This is the self-serving bias. It protects our self-esteem, shields us from failure, but it also keeps us from truly growing. Because real growth comes when we take responsibility and learn from both success and failure. Pause, feel the thought settle as we shift deeper into the way our minds focus. Negativity, bias. Close your eyes for a moment. Think about the last time someone praised you. A kind word, a compliment, a moment of recognition. Now, think about the last time someone criticized you. Which one do you remember more? Chances are, it's the negative one. That's the negativity bias. Our brains are wired to give more weight to bad experiences than good ones. It's a survival instinct designed to keep us safe. But in today's world, it often holds us back, making us dwell on small negatives, even when the world around us is full of good. So, as you drift deeper into stillness, into quiet, let go of the noise, let go of the weight, and let yourself simply in-group bias. Think about a time when you instantly clicked with someone. Maybe they shared your interests, your background, or just saw the world the way you do. It feels good, doesn't it? But have you ever noticed how easy it is to favor those like us, while unconsciously overlooking those who are different? This is in-group bias. It's why cliques form, why certain opinions feel more valid just because they come from our people. And yet, growth happens when we step beyond these familiar circles, when we listen, when we understand. Pause. Breathing slows. Mind relaxes as we explore the other side. Out-group bias. Now, think about someone who is different from you. Maybe they come from another culture, another belief system, another way of life. Have you ever felt distant from them? Less connected? That's out-group bias. Our minds instinctively divide the world into us and them. It happens everywhere, between nations, communities, even simple social circles. But the world is not so divided. When we take the time to understand, to listen without judgment, we realize something profound. Beneath the surface, we are not so different after all. Pause, drifting deeper, mind unwinding, ready for the next thought. Stereotype, threat, Imagine you're about to take an important test, step into a new role, or prove yourself in some way, and suddenly you feel the weight of expectation, the silent pressure of how the world sees you. People like me aren't supposed to succeed at this. What if I confirm their assumptions? This is stereotype, threat, a hidden force that can shake confidence, limit performance, hold us back without us even realizing it. But here's the truth. Those expectations, they are illusions. Your potential is not bound by them. You are more than any label, any assumption. The moment you let go is the moment you truly rise. Pause. A breath in, a breath out, letting go. As we move into another hidden pattern of the mind, cognitive dissonance. Have you ever told yourself one thing, but done another? Maybe you value honesty, yet told a small lie, believe in health, yet made choices that contradicted. That discomfort, that unease, is cognitive dissonance. Our minds crave consistency. When our actions don't match our beliefs, we seek to justify, to explain, to realign. But what if instead of justifying, we simply acknowledged? What if we allowed space for change, for growth, for realignment without guilt? Because in the end, self-awareness is not about perfection. It's about evolution, about becoming more in tune with who we truly are. A deep breath, a gentle stillness, and a mind at peace, ready to drift further into sleep. The halo effect. Picture this. You meet someone for the first time. Their voice is warm, their smile inviting, their presence effortlessly charming, and without even realizing it, you assume they must be intelligent, kind, maybe even successful. But why? This is the halo effect. Our minds take one positive trait and extend it to everything else, a single quality, shaping our entire perception. It happens everywhere, in friendships, in work, even in love. But true understanding comes when we see beyond first impressions, when we step back and allow a fuller picture to emerge. A deep breath, a moment of stillness, as the mind unwinds, ready to drift deeper. The bandwagon effect. Now, imagine a time when everyone around you was excited about something. A new trend, a popular belief, a movement sweeping through the crowd. You feel the pull, the urge to join in, to be part of something bigger. That is the bandwagon effect, a silent force that nudges us to follow the crowd, even when we haven't questioned why. It's comforting, familiar. But is it truly ours? Real clarity comes when we pause and ask ourselves, do I believe this? Or have I simply been swept along? A slow exhale, a softening of thoughts, letting go of outside noise, embracing a quiet, steady mind. The false consensus effect. Close your eyes and imagine you're in a room full of people. You start speaking, sharing your thoughts, your beliefs, and it feels natural to assume that most people think the same way. After all, doesn't it seem obvious? But here's the truth. The world is vast, filled with perspectives different from our own. This is the false consensus effect, the illusion that our way of thinking is more common than it really is. But when we embrace differences, when we listen, without the need to prove or defend, we discover something beautiful. A deeper understanding, a broader world, a more open mind. The breath slows, the body relaxes, and the mind drifts effortlessly into quiet reflection. The endowment effect. Think of something you own, something simple. Maybe an old book, A worn sweater, a favorite chair. To anyone else, it's just an object. But to you, it's priceless. This is the endowment effect, the way our minds attach value. Simply because something is ours, it's why we struggle to let go. Even when we know we should. Why we hold on to things longer than necessary. Why we believe what's familiar is always best. But true freedom comes when we detach, when we see things for what they are, not just for what they mean to us. And with that, the mind releases, softens, and surrenders to the quiet comfort of sleep. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain, looking up, feeling confident that the climb will be easy. With the first few steps, everything seems simple. The path clear, the journey effortless. But as you ascend, you begin to realize there's so much more than you first saw. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. When knowledge is limited, certainty feels strong. But true wisdom comes with understanding how much there is still to learn. And so, with every step, every experience, we become more aware, more humble, more open to growth. A deep breath, a release of tension, surrendering to the stillness, and drifting deeper. The mere exposure effect picture. A song, one you barely noticed the first time you heard it. Then, you hear it again, and again, and soon, without realizing it, you know every note, every word, and somehow it feels familiar, comforting, even beautiful. This is the mere exposure effect, the way our minds grow attached to what is familiar, simply because we encounter it often. It shapes the things we love, the faces we trust, the choices we make without even thinking. But awareness allows us to pause, to choose with intention, to seek not just the familiar, but the meaningful. A slow exhale, the mind unwinding, the body sinking into restful ease. The false uniqueness effect. Close your eyes and think of something that makes you feel special. A talent, a belief, a way of seeing the world, something that feels entirely your own. It's comforting, the idea that we are rare, that our thoughts, our gifts, are one of a kind. But the world is vast, and as we look closer, we find that others share our passions, our struggles, our dreams. This is the false uniqueness effect, the illusion that we are different, when in reality, we are beautifully connected, part of something greater. The breath softens, the edges blur, and sleep becomes effortless. Pessimism bias. Now, imagine living with a constant sense of unease, always expecting the worst. This is pessimism bias. It's when we think negative events are more likely to happen than they really are. This mental trap can make us anxious, overly cautious. We start to assume failure even before trying, constantly preparing for disappointment. But in reality, the odds may not be as bad as we think. The just world hypothesis. There's a belief that the world is fair, that people get what they deserve. It's called the just world hypothesis. When something bad happens to someone, we might try to rationalize it, thinking they must have done something wrong to deserve it. But life isn't always fair. Bad things happen to good people, and good things sometimes happen to those who may not deserve it. Yet, this bias keeps us searching for fairness, even when it's not there. The actor-observer bias. Have you ever caught yourself judging someone else's behavior more harshly than your own? This is the actor-observer bias. When we do something wrong, we tend to blame the situation. Like, I was late because of traffic. But when others do the same thing, we often blame their character. They're always late. This bias makes us see our actions through one lens and others' actions through another. Peak end rule. The peak end rule shows that we remember an experience not by its overall duration, but by how intense the peak moment was and how it ended. For example, if a concert is amazing until the last song, but that song is disappointing, we may leave with a negative memory, even if the rest was fantastic. It's the peak moments and the ending that define how we recall an experience. Choice supportive bias. Once we make a decision, we tend to think it was the right one, even if it wasn't. That's choice supportive bias. After choosing a product, a partner, or a path, we'll look for reasons to justify our choice, often ignoring the flaws and emphasizing the benefits. It's why we feel proud of our decisions, even when they weren't perfect. IKEA effect. Ever spend hours building a piece of furniture only to feel oddly proud of it afterward? That's the IKEA effect. When we invest time and effort into creating something, we begin to value it more than we objectively should. It's why that wobbly shelf or imperfect DIY project can feel like a personal masterpiece. Clustering illusion. We see patterns even when they don't exist. That's the clustering illusion. If you flip a coin and get heads 5 times in a row, you might start thinking it's due to land on tails, when in fact, each flip is independent. We naturally look for order and patterns, even in random data, making us believe we can predict outcomes when we really can't. The gambler's fallacy. This bias occurs when we believe that future events are influenced by past events in random situations. If you've ever heard someone say, "I've lost 5 times in a row, so I'm due for a win," that's the gambler's fallacy. In reality, each event is independent, and the odds don't change based on past outcomes. Escalation of commitment. Sometimes we keep investing in something, even when it's clear it's not working, because we've already invested so much. This is escalation of commitment. It's why people stay in bad relationships, continue losing money on a bad investment, or stick with failing projects. We tend to justify continued effort because we've already put so much into it, despite the mounting losses. The planning fallacy. We tend to underestimate how long things will take, even when we have a history of underestimating them. That's the planning fallacy. Whether it's a project at work or a home renovation, we always think we can finish sooner than we actually can. This bias leads us to create unrealistic schedules and expectations, often resulting in delays and stress. Illusory superiority. We often think we're better than the average person at almost everything. That's illusory superiority. It's why most drivers believe they are above average drivers, despite statistical evidence proving otherwise. This bias makes us overestimate our abilities and underplay our flaws, creating a distorted self-image. The primacy effect. The primacy effect suggests that we're more likely to remember the first piece of information we encounter. For example, when learning a new language, the first words you memorize might stick better than others you learn later on. First impressions, in any context, often have the strongest impact on our memory. The recency effect. On the other hand, the recency effect is when the most recent information is the most memorable. For instance, in a long meeting, you might only remember the final discussion points because they're fresher in your mind. This bias makes the latest experiences and thoughts more vivid than the ones that happened earlier. Risk aversion. Risk aversion is when we prefer avoiding losses rather than acquiring gains. For example, if given a choice between a guaranteed $100 and a 50-50 chance of winning $200 or nothing, many of us will choose the guaranteed $100, even though the potential reward is higher with the gamble. This bias shows our desire for security over taking chances. Loss aversion. Loss aversion is closely related to risk aversion, but it specifically describes how losses feel worse than gains feel good. The pain of losing $100, for example, feels more intense than the pleasure of winning the same amount. This bias can make us cling to things we should let go of, like bad investments or unhealthy relationships, because the pain of loss is overwhelming. Sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy occurs when we continue investing in something simply because we've already invested a lot of time, money, or effort into it, even if continuing isn't rational. It's why people stay at a bad job, finish watching a boring movie, or keep throwing money into a failing project. The sunk costs can't be recovered, but we let them influence our decisions. Illusion of control. The illusion of control happens when we believe we can control outcomes that are actually random or beyond our control. This bias leads people to overestimate their influence in games of chance, like gambling, or when trying to manage things that are inherently uncontrollable. It's why some gamblers think their lucky charm will influence the outcome, even when it has no bearing on the game. Self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy happens when our beliefs or expectations about a person or situation influence our behavior in a way that makes those beliefs come true. For example, if a teacher believes a student is not capable of doing well, they may unintentionally treat them with less encouragement, which leads the student to perform poorly, confirming the teacher's original belief. The curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge occurs when someone with knowledge about a subject has difficulty understanding the perspective of someone who doesn't have the same level of expertise. It's why teachers might find it hard to explain simple concepts to students. They already know the material so well that they forget how complex it might seem to a beginner. The spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is the tendency to overestimate how much others notice or care about our actions and appearance. It's why you might feel self-conscious when speaking in public or think everyone is judging your outfit, even though in reality, most people are too focused on themselves to notice. The Barnum effect. The Barnum effect refers to the tendency to believe vague or general statements about ourselves, especially when they seem personalized. For example, astrology or horoscopes use general descriptions that could apply to anyone, but we tend to think they apply specifically to us, which gives them a sense of accuracy. Availability cascade. An availability cascade happens when a belief or idea gains more and more credibility, simply because it is repeated frequently. The more often people hear something, the more likely they are to believe it's true, regardless of its actual validity. This bias is why rumors and misinformation can spread so quickly, gaining momentum with each retelling. Illusory correlation. Illusory correlation occurs when we perceive a relationship between two events or variables that aren't actually related. For example, if someone believes that eating chocolate causes acne, they're falling for an illusory correlation. In reality, there may be no actual connection between the two, but our minds are wired to search for patterns, even when they don't exist. The halo effect. The halo effect happens when our overall impression of someone influences how we judge their individual traits. For instance, if we think someone is attractive, we may also assume they are intelligent, kind, and capable, even though we have no evidence to support those assumptions. Our positive feelings about one quality spread to others, creating a halo effect. The false dilemma. The false dilemma is a cognitive bias that presents only two options when there are actually more possibilities. It's the idea that something is either one way or the other, with no middle ground. For example, someone might say, "You're either with us or against us," ignoring the fact that there could be other positions or solutions to the issue. The foot in the door technique. The foot in the door technique is a persuasion strategy where you start by asking for a small request, which the person is likely to agree to, and then follow it up with a larger request. Once someone agrees to the small favor, they are more likely to comply with the bigger one. It's like getting your foot in the door before asking for the whole house. The door in the face technique. The door in the face technique is the opposite of the foot in the door technique. Here, you begin with a large request, one that's likely to be rejected, and then follow it up with a smaller, more reasonable request. Because the second request seems more reasonable in comparison, people are more likely to agree to it. The bystander effect. Think of this scenario. You're in a crowded park and see someone fall. Instead of rushing to help, you might wait because everyone else is doing the same. This is the bystander effect. The more people present, the less likely anyone is to offer help. It's because you expect others to act, and everyone assumes someone else will do it. Status quo bias. You've been using the same phone for years, and even though new models have amazing features, you keep holding on to your old one. That's status quo bias, where people prefer things to stay the same, avoiding change even when it could be beneficial. You're comfortable with the familiar, and any change feels risky. Reactance bias. Imagine someone tells you, "You can't eat that pizza right now." Instantly, you feel the urge to eat it, even if you weren't planning to before. This is reactance bias. Your natural reaction to feeling like your freedom of choice is being threatened. You want to restore control by doing the opposite of what was suggested. The illusion of transparency. Have you ever been nervous giving a presentation, but then thought everyone could tell? The illusion of transparency makes you believe others can see your internal emotional state, when, in reality, they usually can't. People are often much less aware of your feelings than you think. The curse of expertise. When you're deeply knowledgeable about something, you may find it hard to explain it to others in a simple way. This is the curse of expertise. Experts forget how hard it was to learn what they know, and they struggle to communicate their knowledge in a way that makes sense to beginners. The Pygmalion effect. If your teacher expects you to perform well, you might start to believe in your own potential and put in more effort, ultimately succeeding. This is the Pygmalion effect. where higher expectations lead to an increase in performance. What people believe about you can actually influence your behavior. The placebo effect. You take a pill, nothing more than sugar, yet you feel relief wash over you. Your pain eases. Your mind, believing in the pill's power, shapes your reality. This is the placebo effect, the remarkable way belief alone can influence the body. The reciprocity norm. Someone offers you a gift, a simple kindness. Without thinking, you feel the need to return the favor. It's instinctual, woven into our nature. The reciprocity norm guides us, urging us to give back when we receive. The decoy effect. Imagine choosing between two pizzas, one for $10, the other for $12. Then, a third option appears, a $15 pizza, almost identical to the $12 one. Suddenly, the $12 pizza seems like the better deal. Your mind, drawn by comparison, shifts its judgment. This is the decoy effect at work. The priming effect. A movie lingers in your mind, its colors, its words, its moments. Later, as you walk through a store, you notice blue items more than before. A subtle nudge, a whisper from your subconscious. This is priming, where past exposure gently shapes the way we see the world. Social proof. A crowded restaurant. Every table filled with people ordering the same dish. You wonder, what makes it so special? Without realizing, you lean into the choice of the crowd, trusting that what's popular must be good. This is social proof, the quiet influence of those around us. The contrast effect. The first thing you see, a pair of shoes, $500. The next pair, $200. Suddenly, it seems like a bargain. Your mind, shaped by contrast, sees value differently depending on what came before. The groupthink, bias, a meeting room, a decision that doesn't sit right with you. Yet, everyone agrees. So, you stay silent. Groupthink takes hold. The quiet pull to go along, to avoid friction, even when doubt lingers inside. Inattentional blindness. Lost in thought, your mind drifts as you walk. You don't see the street performer just ahead. Don't notice the details around you. Focus narrows your vision, making the world beyond it fade. This is inattentional blindness, the unseen in plain sight. Change blindness. A familiar place, yet something's different. A sign has changed. A new object appears, but unless you're looking for it, you don't notice. Change slips by, unnoticed, when our attention is elsewhere. Choice. Blindness. You pick a dessert, then, without realizing, receive a different one. Oddly enough, you don't mind. Your mind convinces you this is what you wanted. This is choice blindness, where our preferences shift without us even knowing. Overjustification effect. You love a hobby, a passion that brings joy. Then, you start getting paid for it. Slowly, the joy fades, replaced by obligation. The overjustification effect, when external rewards dampen the things we once loved freely. The disposition effect. A stock falls, yet you hold on to it, hoping it will rise again. Logic says to cut the loss, but emotions say otherwise. The disposition effect keeps you holding on, even when reason suggests letting go. The projection bias makes us forget that every mind views the world differently. The fading affect bias, an old argument, once sharp, now dulled by time. The sting softens, the edges blur. Negative emotions fade, while the good moments remain clearer. This is the fading affect bias, the mind's gentle way of easing the past. The hot hand fallacy. A winning streak, a feeling that you can't miss. But each shot, each roll of the dice is its own moment. The past doesn't guarantee the future. The hot hand fallacy tricks us into believing otherwise. Survivorship. Bias stories of success surround us. Entrepreneurs who made it big, athletes who beat the odds. But what about those who didn't? The unseen failures. Survivorship bias keeps them hidden, making success seem more common than it really is.